Caution, you will begin to love your 9 to 5 with this show. Join us as we explore and discover your unique strengths and learn to apply them to your daily business activities with your host, Shmuel Septimus.
Okay, welcome to this episode. Thanks for joining us and for listening to us today. We have a very exciting guest with us today. We have Coach Jim Johnson. Coach Jim Johnson is from the Rochester, New York area. He's written a book called A Coach and a Miracle with a fantastic story that we'll get into very soon. Coach right now is also a keynote lecturer, is involved in the National Speakers, is a member of the National Speakers Association. He's a motivational speaker, has been a teacher and coach for several decades, and brings with him, quite the experience that we can learn so much from, and we can see how we could apply that to our professional careers, even if you don't like basketball. But if you do, then you'll definitely appreciate some of the parables, some of the examples, that much more. So, with no further ado, Coach, I would like, if you can, share with us a little bit more personally and professionally what you're up to right now, and take it away. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me. To start, I'm very proud of my family. I want to share just very quickly that next week I'll be married 35 years to my lovely bride, and we have one son. And my bride and I are both teachers and coaches, and yet my son took a different path, and we're very proud. He became an attorney. I went to Pepperdine Law School in California, and he stayed out in the Los Angeles area as an attorney and is doing very well. Professionally, I actually follow the footsteps of my parents in the sense that my dad was actually a high school teacher, went into administration later, and was also my high school basketball coach. And my mom was an elementary school teacher, and that's the path I chose. I was the oldest of 6 children, and only one other of my siblings ended up going into education. But I'm very proud. I had a long career. I was a teacher for over 3 decades, and also a basketball coach as well. I just retired from everything coaching and teaching in 2016 because I was part of a story that I'll share in a little bit back in 2006 that touched my heart deeply, and fortunately touched a lot of other hearts as well. And it thrust me into the speaking world, which I've absolutely fallen in love in. And right now I do an inspirational talk, a leadership talk, and I talk about teamwork as well. And I also do some workshops. And I've been doing that for over a decade, but I just decided I've become so passionate about it that I wanted to do that full time. So I've been speaking full time for just over a year now.
Wow. So, Coach, that's quite a career, something that you definitely should be very proud of. Let's jump straight into it. I mean, I've read, I've been on your website. I've watched some of the videos there. And I've also watched the YouTube video, the story of J-Mac. So give us the short version of J-Mac.
Sure. So as a young man that came into our basketball program, that changed my life dramatically for multiple reasons. His name was Jason McElwain. He got tagged the name J-Mac by me because I couldn't pronounce his last name too well. Unfortunately, the name stuck because he liked it. And he has autism, which has become very prevalent in our country. In fact, the latest research I've seen is 1 in 68 children born in the United States are on the spectrum now. But despite Jason being autistic and learning disabled, did not stop him from having a big dream. And his dream was he wanted to play on the varsity basketball team. And what was very unique and special about Jason, in fact, I'm reading Angela Duckworth's book called Grit. I saw her speak at the Global Leadership Summit a couple days ago. And J-Mac, as I'm reading this book, is the definition of grit because I coached 30 years as a head coach, and I rarely ever had a young person, if they didn't make our team, try out the second year. Well, Jason didn't make our team 3 consecutive years, yet he stayed on as our team manager. And when he didn't make it his senior year, I shared with him because he was so loyal and committed to our program that I was going to give him a gift. And the gift was I was going to give him a uniform for senior night and hopefully get him into our final home game. Wow. Well, that was February 15th, 2006. And I was so touched because senior night is always special. It's where we honor our seniors and bring their parents out. But to see Jason now embracing his parents in uniform instead of his white shirt and black tie as a member memory I will always cherish. Well, with just over 4 minutes left in the game, I decided the time was right. I put J-Mac in his first varsity basketball game. The first time he touched the ball, he shot a three-pointer from the right corner. The crowd stood in anticipation. It missed by like 6 feet. It wasn't even close.
Wow.
And as I kid
What were you
people, I
thinking
know
then?
you're,
Like, were you having second thoughts at that point?
not really, because I just wanted to help him score a basket. I thought if he could score a basket. So the interesting thing is, it was a very valuable lesson that I think we could all learn from J-Mac, is how many times in life do we give up after we fail on the first attempt? And yet Jason never phased him. He went on. The second shot he took was a much shorter shot. It was a lot closer. It hit the backboard and rim, didn't go in. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, God's starting to listen. We're getting closer. And then the third one was a three-pointer, and this time it went in, and the place just exploded. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, God must be a basketball fan. Not only is Jason scored, he's got a three-pointer. It can't get any better than this, right? Well, interesting enough, as I kid people, because Jason's boyhood idol was Kobe Bryant, that he turned into Kobe Bryant for the last 3 minutes of the game, and he just started making shot after shot. And when the smoke cleared, our public address announcer came on after he made a shot right at the buzzer, a long three-pointer, and said, the leading scorer for the Trojans tonight, our nickname, J-Mac, with 20 points. And I was just numb. In fact, I thought to myself, with my math brain, if he'd have played the whole game, he'd have scored 160 points.
Wow.
It was just
that is
really
phenomenal. I mean, if for those of you who didn't see the video, you really got to watch it. That Jim goes absolutely berserk. They go crazy after the first shot. But I watched it. By the time you hit the buzzer, both teams were celebrating that victory. I mean, it's just something that's really, really phenomenal to watch. And you could see how much that video has been watched and shared. That really struck a chord with so many people. How did that affect your professional career? Or actually, even before we go there, what do you think it is that I know there was some prayers going there, and I know that God obviously is definitely a basketball fan, or definitely a J-Mac fan. But what exactly happened there? This is someone who didn't really have the skill and somehow just got into the zone, so to speak, and it was literally on fire.
I've done a lot of reflecting on it. In fact, I wrote a book called, ironically, A Coach in a Miracle, because I really believe I witnessed a miracle. I got kidded a lot that, why didn't you play him earlier and all that? But, I had seen him play numerous times, and he had a heart of gold, but, he wasn't a very skilled player. And I really believe that, whatever you believe, I do believe in God, and is that it was a way that we could send a message through Jason, because autism now has become very prevalent in all over the world, is to give people hope. And I think when you give people hope and inspiration, that's always a great start. And that's what I really believe happened, is through J-Mac, we got a chance to be inspired and really to get everybody to think again. People can do a lot more than you think they can. And Jason certainly proved that night.
Let me ask you a question. Was Jason ever able to replicate that behavior? Did he ever get back onto the court since then? Or did the magic run out?
Actually, he, because that season, the rule in our area is to play, because that was our last game of the year, is he would have to play in 6 games to play in our postseason. I mean, he understood that. He came back as our manager. And ironically, I had been a fairly successful coach up to going into that year, but my big stumbling block is we kept losing in our postseason tournament. In fact, going into Jason's senior, we lost 6 times in the semifinals. Wow. And ironically, that was another 4-minute mile barrier broken, because we won the sectional title for the first time. Wow. And interesting, Jason came back and helped me as an assistant, and we ended up winning 6 total after that. So it was, it's like, when Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, then lots of people broke it. And that was really something that was similar in my case, is that, it gave people so much hope, but yet it really inspired me that we can all do a lot more than we think we can.
So let's bring this back home now. I mean, that story is phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing it. I mean, I know the story well. I've watched that video several times because it's really just so phenomenal. And I've heard you share it more than once. And, that really is for anyone who knows anyone who's struggling with autism or with anything, any other type of thing, and you see them overcome a challenge in such a phenomenal way, it's always so inspiring. So thanks for sharing that. Now,
My pleasure.
thank you. So just bringing this a little bit back home,
Mm-hmm.
our focus is for those who are struggling in their careers, people who are, what I hear sometimes, I hear the people that, oh my gosh, it's Monday, we got to go back to work, and Thirsty Thursdays and TGIF, and, and now it's the weekend, we get to live. And that always frustrates me, because if you don't love what you're doing every day, don't do it. Life is too short. It's wrong, and you're doing yourself an injustice. So there's definitely there's definitely a breakthrough that happened on that basketball court that day. And there's definitely some connection that Jason was able to make in his way. And I would say that you were able to make with your team, with Jason, and really with the world, because that was something that was shared with so many people. How do you think that it's possible for somebody who's struggling professionally, either they're not happy with, or not even not happy, if they're not excited with what they're doing every day, and they're thinking about either a career change, a mind shift change, maybe starting a business of their own, and what do you think, what type of power can somebody really find within themselves to kind of just start getting out there and shooting their metaphoric 3-pointers and just start swishing it?
Well, the thing that jumped at me, I do an inspirational talk, and two of the keys, and ironically, as I'm reading this book, grit, they're the two great keys that Andrew Duckworth says about grit. But the thing that always jumps out to me is, how do you find your passion? And for me, I love teaching and coaching. And then, interesting enough, later in my career, I ended up doing something. I remember the first time I did a public speech, I stood up, my mind sat back down. I mean, I was struggled. And yet now I can't wait to get in front of audiences. And so it's really a thing of, as your journey in life, you got to find what really excites you. Because what I found is, when I really found things I love to do, I was going to invest a lot of time, and you call that hard work, but it doesn't feel like hard work because you love it.
Right.
And which leads me to my second point, is that when you find that passion and your ability, is because of the love, you have what we call perseverance, that what I call never give up mindset, that you're going to keep pushing and plugging and finding a way. And that was what I really went through with my journey in trying to win this Section 5 championship for the first time. Is I kept trying to strive, and what can I do to get better? How can I help my team become better? Those are questions you got to constantly ask yourself. And then the transition period is that, it's easy for me to say, find what you love to do and go do it. Well, if you don't make any money, it's hard to live. So I highly recommend that if you're not finding your passion, you're not happy in your work, then try to do something on the side. Do something part-time. Figure out if it's something you love. And as you start to get some success in it, then you can make it a bigger part of your life. So I'm not the person that says, just leave your job, for the unknown without a plan and starting to get into it. But I think when you really find your passion, you find that you'll make it a study. That's one of the great things I can advise people, is make whatever you love a study, so you get outstanding, because the world rewards excellence, and when they feel that you're excellent, the marketplace is going to open up for you.
Okay, what do you mean by making it a study? What does that mean?
So that means that you have a personal growth plan. Okay. And, like, how many people are reading every day? Like, I've read over 1,000 books, and wow. My challenge to your listeners is, are you reading in the field that excites you? Are you getting better? Are you finding different ways? Like, I kid people, for the people that are driving in this world, is your car a library on wheels? And you
Absolutely.
have a seat.
Oh, I'm a huge fan of that. I get my an hour commute each way to work right now. As this is, right. I'm living what you're saying, because I'm a nursing home administrator. That's very full time, but it's an hour away from my
right.
house. I have an hour each way. If I listen to a book on Audible or podcast, which is how I got into this at double the speed, that could be 4 hours
right.
a day. I could do a book a day. It adds up though.
It's really powerful,
Yeah.
I'll augment what you said, that I truly believe life accumulates, and what you do today can either help you or hinder you. So I think that the ability to have a personal growth plan where you're feeding your mind, like my goal is I'm going to feed my mind at least an hour every single day, and that's through reading, listening in my car. I have an iPod that has inspirational education stuff on it.
Hmm.
So just different ways that you can find a way to continue to grow. Because as I believe as a leader, the first person you have to grow is who? Yourself, and then once you get that figured out, then the ability to grow others is the second
Yeah.
phase of that.
So you mentioned a couple of things. I mean, I wrote down early on in this interview as I'm writing away because you're sharing so much information. But I wrote down the word perseverance, and 3 years in a row, starting from JMac, and just seeing how he refuses to give up, and he refused to give up until he had such phenomenal success. And I see that you've done the same thing with your team, and I'm sure him being your assistant manager, or if that's the title that you gave him, that kind of makes sense that your perseverance rubbed off onto him. But that once you've already kind of discovered, during the process of discovering what your passion is, so then that's where the perseverance kicks in, where, you know, I'm, on a Sunday morning to get this house to myself took a lot of perseverance. A lot of people have to be playing elsewhere right now so that we could have this conversation. So I kind of
Right.
get that. But at the same time, that only happens once you've already begun the journey. I speak to people and they're like, find your passion, find what you're good at. Everyone's talented at something, and they've heard that too many times, and sometimes they're discouraged by it because they say, no, I don't feel like I am better than anybody else. I don't feel like I have something that's unique, which I know is not true.
Mhm.
Every single human being has something that they're good at and that they're great at that nobody else is great at, and they need to take the time to find it. I mean, you clearly found it in your coaching and your teaching, but then, relatively well into your career, you found another passion that you didn't even realize. Like, I love the way you said
Right.
it. You got up in front of your first crowd, you stood up, and your mind sat down. So that was definitely new territory for you. You're trying out new things, and I mean, and you've made quite a career out of it yourself. So if you're talking to someone who's earlier on, someone's in their 20s or 30s or maybe even 40s, and they've been doing something for a while and they're still not kind of finding it. So feeding their mind, obviously, that exposes them to a lot of things.
Right.
But what about how do they even know where to begin? I mean, I had this struggle myself recently with trying to figure out, all right,
Right.
I want to find what else it is. Any particular exercises, that you would recommend, or, just to help people just experiment to find out what that is. And then they could go down there with the perseverance and the, idealism that's necessary.
Well, I truly believe, to answer that question, what I've found through my experience in sharing it with others is that first thing you have to do is find out what your purpose or mission is, and that's something that's not easy. I read Dr. Covey's book many years ago, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, and what really opened my eyes is when he talked about, everybody should have their own personal mission statement. And at that point in my life, I was in my 30s. I had no clue what my purpose was, but what it did is it stimulated me to think, and I started to really understand. And then I started to put it right. In fact, when I travel the country, I'll often ask audiences, how many people have a personal mission statement written down? And it's very, very few. But what I'm really trying to do is stimulate their thinking to say, okay, why am I on this earth? What is my purpose? And then I share with them, that when I became clear, it helped me immensely, because then it established what I was all about. And the other thing is establishing what are your core values, what is most important. So my mission is to be an outstanding role model that makes a positive difference in the world by helping others make their dreams come true. And when I'm doing something now, I go back, what? Am I living my mission and my purpose? And if I am, then I really feel good about myself. So my recommendation is you really got to know what you're all about, your why, and your core, what you're going to stand for, what you're going to live for, what you will die for. And once you're clear on that, I think it really is a guiding light in helping you finding your passion and then being able to persevere from there.
Okay, so I'm going to keep it drilling down a little bit just so that
Yep.
the listeners can really get the full benefit out of this. Um, I understand that, and I've tried that exercise myself, and I can't say that I'm as successful as you, that I can just recite it like I'm, reciting something that I'm used to saying many times, but I could just see you on the video version, just closing your eyes and just boom, spitting it out. And obviously, if you have such a clear mission statement and you really know where you are, that of course that makes everything, it's a barometer to judge the whole world by. But let's say I'm struggling. I sit down on a quiet Sunday morning, I go into a coffee shop, and I take out a pen and paper or open up my laptop, and like personal mission statement on top, and now it's just blank. I have no idea. Yeah, pay the bills so I could live to work, or do I work to live? Like, how do we start that whole process?
Well, I'll give you two answers. And the first thing is, I think you really have to start jotting down things like, what's most important to you. For me, like it was integrity and building trust, and do I want to be a role model? And so, it was a process. This didn't take me, 2 hours to do. I mean, I started to jot notes down, like you said. I put on top, what am I all about? What's my real mission in life? And it was a process, so it took me time. The other thing that I truly believe that's helped me immensely, and I helped a lot of people that I've worked with, my players and now my audiences and people I work with, is that, we all hear about it, but I found that so many people don't practice it. What are your goals? What are you trying to reach? And, like I talk to people about what are your daily disciplines, and I give two illustrations. Like one is that I do a daily goal list where I put the date on top and I put down what I'm trying to accomplish, and really for the next year. And what I highly recommend to people that are just starting this, start with 3. What are your 3 most important goals? And then try to write them down each day. And then even take it another step further by putting it on an index card, get up in the morning. And like I share 2 statements.
I do this every day. It's so funny that you mentioned that.
That's great. And the 2 things I'll always say is, I'll say I am responsible and I like myself, and then I say my goals in front of a mirror. I do that every morning. I also do it just before I go to bed. And so again, is the late great Zig Ziglar. I love quotes. I used to give my team a quote every day. Mm-hmm. Is that you can't hit a target you don't have. So by being very clear about who you are and what you're going after. And then the last part of that is... Let me give you
another quote, because you love quotes. I believe this one's from Wayne. Sure. This one's from Wayne Gretzky. He says that you miss... it's a sports metaphor. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Absolutely, it's an awesome quote. And the last part of the goal setting process is what I call the think tank, and that is where you put your goal up on top of a piece of paper, and then see if you can come up with 20 ideas on how you can possibly make that goal come to fruition. And when you do that, then the last part is taking action, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and keep going. That perseverance kicks in.
Yeah, I mean, the taking action part is where a lot of us fall out. Even the personal mission statement. I think that a lot of times people are reluctant to start that because perhaps, I don't know if it's psychologically true or not, but you probably know better than I do. But perhaps we're encountering our mortality. Is that there's a finite start and end to our visit here, and we better leave with having accomplished something, or we didn't really use our time here wisely. So now that that's the case, we have to start writing. This is not a will yet. This is a lifetime will, the will that we're going to live by, not that we're going to leave for others. And sometimes the biggest challenge, at least for me, and this might be true for others too, just get started. Is that, it's okay. Once you start writing and you're starting with ideas, and every day, I'm a techie, so I do everything on my phone. But every day, any thought that comes in that has to do with this, just jot it down. And everyone, and when you review it, you can be surprised how much how much that information grows. But for me, the biggest challenge has really been just getting started, and realizing that it's necessary. And then the other part is what you mentioned is, taking action. It doesn't have to be, like you said, dumping your career and starting doing something drastic and starting hiking up Mount Everest. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. But it means take every day, take one step towards whatever it is. Define the step and take it. That's really awesome.
And I'd like to add one thing is that I think the other thing is, being a coach myself, is that, I think everybody needs a coach, and whether it's where you have like your own personal coach, or you have a mastermind group or a networking group, or, just even, doing things like reading biographies of people that overcame challenges, whatever it happens to be. But you need to keep those resources. And, it's interesting because I understand, because, if you actually hire a personal coach, it can get expensive. But, it's interesting that the best athletes in the world, the CEOs of the world, the high achievers, almost all of them have coaches. And you wouldn't think that because they're at this high level. Well, no, they need coaches. They need people
Absolutely.
that can help them and inspire them and that kind of thing.
This has been a challenge for me because when I started in my position as a nursing home administrator, so it's definitely a leadership role that I was thrown into, not really very prepared. And as I'm growing into the role with family expenses growing at the same time, I really did not, it was challenging to find the extra funds for a personal leadership coach. But I made that decision, and if you listen to my first episode, that's my interview with my coach, Gotti Pollock, I still do. I keep on starting and stopping with him because, like, all right, this month I could do it. Next month I don't think so. See you in 3 months, and every time I do it, it's like I got to do this every day. But so it's all about finding that right balance. But there's so much value. I mean, a big part of the impetus of starting this podcast really has to do with those sessions, and a lot of the success that I am achieving in my administration role has to do with that too. You started mentioning before about resources and other than coaching, or perhaps in additional to coaching, and any particular books, podcasts, shows, or anything that has been very helpful for you and that you can recommend for others who are also looking to be more in touch with who they are, find their passions, and develop their careers?
Well, that's a great question. Sometimes it can be challenging because, there's some general books, and I'll give you a few ideas that have been great for me. But at the same time, I truly believe that you got to find the books that are things that you're passionate about, that you want to grow in that area. And it may be something totally different than what I am. For example, I love learning about success and leadership and how to motivate. Those are a lot of things I read. So The 7 Habits of the Highly Effective People, an all-time classic, is a wonderful book that I love. Think and Grow Rich. I've read a number of books by John Maxwell, the leadership guru. I've read a lot of coaching books. When I grew up, John Wooden, the late, great UCLA coach, I've read a lot of books about him and other successful coaches. So, again, depending on what, Jack Canfield, the Success Principles is an unbelievably great book. And so many, there's so many wonderful ones out there that you can pick up. So, and again, I think it's just as you move on, like one of the most recent books I read was a book called Contagious, because I'm trying to figure out, what's a better way that we can market, and what's contagious, what isn't, So again, as you move in your journey, you got to find out what things are, where you want to grow, and there's great books in that. But
you've really given quite a few resources right there, and I'll definitely put a link in the show notes to those books for those who want to read it. And it's true that it does, of course, it depends what you want to go into and what's your field and what's your particular interest. But truth be told, almost everything that you mentioned, I've read some of them, and now I plan on reading the others. Most of those are pretty generic because leadership applies to every single person. You have to take leadership in your own life, and success, obviously. That's definitely something that we're all striving for. And what you said about Contagious, you really got me thinking. I'm trying to figure this out. Something magical happened, not just what happened on the basketball court with J-Mac, but additionally, the world's reaction. The world was so blown away by really, it's pretty courageous because, as you mentioned, some of your struggles in your coaching career, and you're putting him in the game, 4 minutes left to go, and you're putting something on him, and just the reaction, and how successful he's been. And for some reason, people ate that up. That was people were desperate to see that and to feel that inspiration. So I wonder if we could really break down exactly what happened there and figure out how to replicate it. Maybe it's an idea for your next book. To figure out how to replicate it, that might, that could really help for marketing purposes, for anything. There's something something. Obviously, you can't get J-Mac or someone like that on the court hitting hitting 3-pointers. That's not happening every day. But if you can figure out why that was so, the world was starving for such inspiration, and replicate that, that could be awesome. All right, I really appreciate your time today, Coach. But just before we wrap up, if you can just give the audience, if they want to be in touch with you, I know that you're a phenomenal keynote speaker, and you have your books, and you have your website. What is the best way for people to get through to you if they want to contact you and talk to you further?
Sure. The best way is through my website. It's CoachJimJohnson.com. And I do have a manager. Her name is Kate Holgate. That's wonderful to work with. And we have our number and contact information on there that you can reach out. I do have a free newsletter you can sign up for on there. I also do a weekly blog that you can sign up for, all complimentary. And just ways that you can continue to grow, that I really try, that's one of my journeys now, is to help others make their dreams come true. So I'm always trying to feed their minds with information that's helped me or I've learned from other people.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm on your website right now, and I do see the resources that you're referring to, and reach out today, more about me and all that, and the newsletter is right there on the bottom. So that's definitely very, very valuable information. If there's one final tip, one final thought to help those who are struggling with success in their careers, if there's maybe one final quote that you would want to share with them just to get a little bit stronger in what they're doing and maybe a little bit more focused into what they should be spending their time doing. Do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'll end, as I said, I love quotes. And, I one of my favorite Americans of all time was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I think he said it best when he said that we all can be great because service leads to greatness, and we all have the capability to serve. So I want to leave your audiences that when you're having that mindset, that service, I call it service leadership mindset, that you're trying to seek ways that I can add value and help others. That's a pretty darn good way to get success in your own life, by helping others be successful.
Awesome. I really love that. And the proof that I love that is that I do a PowerPoint presentation on customer service to my staff, and I have a slide with that quote right on it. So that is awesome. I really appreciate it, Coach Jim. And again, I'll put a link to all of the information that we discussed in the show notes, and we'll be able to find all of that on the website. And again, thank you so much, Coach, for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm glad we do it. I look forward to continuing our relationship. It was wonderful to talk to you today.
It was a